yeah, for the last 4 years. I also have been working in the disaster management, climate change policy, and grassroots campaigning space for the last 8 years. I specifically sought impact-driven roles, so I worked in policy briefs, tracked negotiations at the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, sold EVs at Tesla, campaigned for the Zero Carbon Act through Generation Zero, and assisted in the judicial review against Mill Road with All Aboard Aotearoa. I currently sit as a co-chair for Generation Zero and continue to campaign on climate justice issues, particularly for the Global South.
Kia ora, thank you. Very, very impressive. And we're so lucky to have you on board today. Can't wait to hear some of your answers to our questions. Sarah, do you want to go next?
Sure. So I'm Sarah Holden, Director of Oxygen Consulting. My journey into sustainability began probably when I was a child, really. I, unlike kids today, spent quite a lot of time outside. And yeah, that's kind of where I guess my connection to nature grew. I did a PhD in environmental and marine science at university, and then went on actually to start my career in sustainability at the SBN. I was Rachel's first staff member, she likes to tell everyone. And that was a really great stepping stone into furthering my career in sustainability. So subsequently went on to IAG, working as a sustainability manager, both in their Australia and New Zealand teams. Then on to Westpac into their sustainability team. And in 2018 set up Oxygen Consulting. So we're a specialist sustainability consulting firm. We're just a small business. There's 5 of us all together, and our purpose is really to help businesses with achieve their sustainability objectives. So we provide everything from the sort of technical support services like emissions profiles, materiality assessments, environmental management plans, policy development, through to the sort of more softer things like capability development and program execution. So it's a real privilege to be able to come back and have a chat to the Now crowd via the SBN again, which will always be close to my heart. So it's a pleasure to be here today. I'm looking forward to it.
Kia ora, thank you. Yeah, it's so nice to have SBN alumni come along to events and speakers. I'm often tapping them on the shoulder for stuff like this, so awesome to have you along. And last but certainly not least, we have Sophia. Kia ora, Sophia.
Kia ora koutou. He ori tēnei no Ngāti Kahungunu ki Wairoa, Te Ahiwaru me Te Akitai Waihoa. Kia ora everyone. My name is Sophia Olofanga. I am the Corporate Social Responsibility Manager for Dempsey Wood Civil. It's a pretty big role, and I'm fairly newbie to the sustainability world. I have a background in environmental science, which is cool. Represent, Sarah. But yeah, I started off in straight after uni. I got an internship in a small environmental management firm, which I learnt the ropes of ecology and doing environmental management plans and a lot of that sort of thing. And then I got the opportunity to help out with the carbon certification. So that's where I kind of had that first introduction to sustainability, although, you know, growing up it was a lot different in our my personal world. But then, yeah, moving into that space, I really wanted to learn more. So then I kind of did a little bit of upskilling, then moved into the civil construction industry, which was really throwing in the deep end, because there's a lot of work to be done. But yeah, the belief in me, which was really what I'm grateful for. Yeah, and then so I started off as an environment and sustainability consultant or advisor, and then I've kind of progressed up the ranks into what my role is now, which is really broad, really challenging, but that's sustainability for you.
Kia ora, thank you, Sophia. And She hasn't said it because I'm sure she's super humble, but she also won an award in our Sustainable Business Awards last year. So we have to give her a plug for that. So that was super exciting for us and great to have you today. Cool. Okay, so now we're going to launch into some questions for people on the call. I've got a few questions of kind of just stuff I've come up with that I think would be really useful. But as we talk, if something pops into your head, you can pop it into the chat and we'll go to it at the end, or just make a note of it and we'll kind of open the floor up at the end. So just keep those thoughts kind of ticking along and then we'll get to them at the end. So first, you guys might have already touched on it, but sort of how did your sustainability journey start? I know for me, there was definitely a moment where things almost clicked into place and everything was kind of like, oh yeah, I see how this is what the world should be and this is gonna kind of influence the rest of my life. So do any of you have that sort of moment? If we start with Sarah this time.
Sorry, just unmuting myself there. Yeah, so as I said, it was definitely, you know, a big part of growing up was that connection to nature, and I guess that stayed with me intrinsically through my life. And as I got older, I got probably like most people, as they go through school, you kind of get funneled into doing specific subjects, which you then get to the end of 7th form, well, year 13, and going, well, what is it that I'm going to do next? And I'd sort of been funneled into a science pathway, but that was not through my choice. Well, it was through my choice, but my parents certainly were very encouraging of me to do science as a, you know, a way into a lot of different careers. But what I did find was I'd absolutely bombed out in chemistry, physics, yeah, pretty much maths with calculus, math with stats. The only subjects I did well in were English and biology. And I scraped in with the lowest possible university entrance result that you could imagine. And from there, sort of thought, well, what is it that I'm actually going to do? Because, you know, I'm not actually interested in any of these hard science subjects, but I am very passionate about the environment, and actually I'm okay at it as well. So there was an environmental science, environmental marine science degree that I could do, so I followed that pathway and absolutely loved it, but actually really quickly, as I got to the end of my master's, started to think, well, actually I'm not sure I want to be an applied ecologist. I'm really interested in business, and at the time there wasn't really a lot going on in terms of environment and business. There was a little organisation called Auckland Environmental Business Network, which Rachel Brown was the CEO of at the time. And it was through there that I got a taste for how environment and business, and in fact social responsibility, because ultimately they merged with the Businesses for Social Responsibility and became SBN. So really a sense for integrating social, environmental into the you know, the business pathway, and that was exciting for me. I was thinking, oh my goodness, I found the perfect career path for me, because I do want to be in business, but be able to bring that kind of nature and social aspects into the role of business. So yeah, that's how it started for me. Haven't looked back.
Thanks, Sarah. That's a really interesting path, and yeah, I'm sure lots of people on the call will love to hear that it's not just you know, it doesn't have to come from that science place, it can come from lots of different places. Dewey, do you want to go next for that question?
Sure. Okay, so this might be confronting for some people, so just letting you know now. My climate journey started in November 2013 when Super Typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines. I was in my second year of law school when the news about the deadliest typhoon hit my home country. And I project managed relief drives here in New Zealand. And then my whole family went to Tacloban for our relief mission, where we volunteered on the ground and gave, you know, what we managed to I guess, fundraise during that time, which was about 50,000 pesos worth of school supplies and kitchen homeware things to start people back on their feet. And while I was over there, I guess I saw the real impacts of climate change and how that could really affect lives and livelihoods, right? I saw houses toppled, I saw body bags on the road, I saw cargo ships aground, trees flattened. My family flew into Tacloban and we just saw half the airport. And those images opened my eyes to how crucial it is to work on climate justice. So since then, I've been volunteering for different climate organizations. I kept saying yes to opportunities that piqued my interest that is going to further climate justice and climate action, such as being a youth delegate at the UNFCCC COP negotiations in Lima and in Marrakesh. I did policy works, did a whole lot of campaigning, particularly grassroots campaigning here in New Zealand and in the Philippines. And like Sarah, just didn't look back since then. So that's been, I guess, like the start for me, but also my drive to keep going.
Amazing. Thank you for that. What an amazing kind of entrance into it, and fantastic that you've kind of kept it going and had such a huge impact. Amazing. Thank you. Sophia.
Sure. My sustainability journey probably came into inception when the earliest that I can remember was probably when I was about 5, when I was going out with my grandfather and my father and a group of all of the other uncles and aunties, and we were going out gathering kai moana from, I can't remember where it was, somewhere in the Manukau. Yeah, there were lots of stories and just kōrero about, you know, only taking as much as you need, only supplying for your family, and making sure that there's enough there to respawn and for future generations. So that's kind of where the first idea came from. At the time, I didn't know it was sustainability though. It was very much just the way of life or way of living. Then going through high school, I didn't actually want to do environmental science. I wanted to be a visual artist, but my parents discouraged me from that because they said it wouldn't pay the bills. But yeah, I kind of balanced the social aspects of art, and I did a lot of like political photography. So then I kind of was exposed to a lot of protesting and activism and seeing the world and degradation of landscapes through that lens, and then I kind of applied it in a biological way. So that's why I kind of wanted to pursue environmental science as an outlet. I got involved in quite a few apprenticeships through my marae, looking at lizards and all sorts of other different biodiversity. Yeah, so that's kind of where I got the spark for sustainability.
Amazing, thank you. And I also wanted to be a visual artist and was also discouraged slightly by having parents who were both visual artists who were like, maybe choose something else. But yeah, super interesting to hear kind of the different ways that people get into sustainability. I think it's such an interesting industry that, you know, it hasn't been a job even, you know, not long ago when I was at high school. It wasn't something that they were saying we could go and do as a job. And so it's always really interesting to hear how people kind of make their way to it and that kind of passion that often leads you there. So thank you guys. Okay, next question. What are some key challenges or pushbacks you've encountered in your sustainability journey, and how did you overcome these? You could choose one or just sort of a general theme. Stewie, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I think just to unlike Sarah and Sophia, I guess, like, just to be very clear, my role currently is construction litigation, which is very different to my activism, which is climate change and climate justice. Yeah, and so I am working towards, and I will be starting a new role soon wherein I could do what I'm doing now voluntarily in my paid day-to-day role, but that's just something so people understand that my challenges could be a little bit different compared to what Sarah and Sophia may be saying a while later on. Okay, so I've obviously encountered many challenges and pushbacks in the last 8 years that I've been in this space, particularly in the campaigning and advocacy world. The biggest ones for me when I was reflecting on this were these three. So firstly would be the inability to turn off and prioritize my well-being. This has been like an ongoing problem for me, particularly because, you know, I work as a construction litigation lawyer, and so that in itself is high stress. And then I'm very passionate about climate justice, and so I'm always wanting to just give as much time as possible to those two things that I do now. My second, I guess, like challenge or pushback would be being tokenized as a young brown female by companies and organizations sometimes, who I genuinely want to work with and engage with, but yet like not getting I guess like that celebration and that amplification that we as, you know, people of color would actually expect in this space. And then thirdly, and the most ironic for me, is also being diminished as someone who is too young to have authority in this climate policy space, or, you know, not being vegan, or not having all of these other labels that basically gatekeep who could be a climate activist in like the most stereotypical way. So yeah, and collectively how I've overcome all of those pushbacks and challenges is to really know my purpose and be hyper aware of myself, right? And so in the last 8 years, I kept asking myself, right, why am I taking space? Who am I doing this all for? Who are my allies? What am I good at and what am I bad at, right? Like, because why would I be focusing on my weaknesses when I can just hone in on my strengths? And what kind of work do I truly want to say yes to, so that I can isolate and really prioritize my time to them instead of saying yes to everything? And whenever I find myself on the verge of like burning out, or if I find myself in an unsafe space, I always lean back to that image that I shared with everyone just a while ago of, you know, Tacloban and what I saw then. And I remember why I've decided to act in this space, because it is hard to be in the sustainability space, particularly in the grassroots campaigning world. And I guess like as a matter of practice, I try to always vet the people in the organizations who ask for my time. If I know that there are lots of young people here who is sometimes asked to work on things voluntarily and I guess give value. One thing that I wish I could go back and tell my younger self, and I keep practicing this now, is that I tell myself that I do have the agency to vet and ask questions to truly see if this kaupapa will further climate justice or not, and ask whether what they're coming to me about is something that I can definitely give value to. Who else is on the table? Who else should I be actually inviting into the table if necessary? And ask if those who are invited to the table are compensated. Yeah, because as much as sustainability is such a crucial topic that requires engagement, we need to, I guess, like as, you know, as a young person, I need to be confident that I have that agency and confidence as well that I can put myself first if I need to, so that I don't burn out. So I guess those are the biggest challenges that I've come across time and time again within the last 8 years. Yeah, it's still a work in progress. I don't want to kind of represent myself as someone who's perfect in this space, because I'm truly not. But those are the kind of things that I've tried to do so far to keep myself space within this important kaupapa of climate justice.
Amazing, thank you. Thank you for such a well thought through response as well. And I think lots of people will have similar experiences. I especially know the one I find sustainability can be burnout city for a lot of people. So it is about, you know, making sure you can't give if you can't, you know, look after yourself first. Thank you. Sophia, would you like to go next?
Yeah, being in the construction industry for the last 3 years has been pretty challenging, and mainly because we've got a lot of older people that are very stuck in their ways and have their one way of doing stuff, and you know that this is the supplier that they'll always go to and always order the same materials and all chuck all their rubbish in one bin because it's easiest. So breaking through some of those attitudes and behaviors has been a really big challenge for me. And I suppose the best way that I've found with trying to break through that barrier is by leading them by the hand and kind of showing the positives and the benefits of doing it in a more sustainable way, and more in the perspective of education rather than telling them off and you know, negatively reinforcing their behaviors. So yeah, so that's one big challenge and solution to use. Yeah, Dewey, what you were saying about burnout, it's so real. Because sustainability is so broad, you're covering social, environmental, and all the political space and governance behind that. It's just, yeah, it's massive, and you really need to make sure that you've got the support and champions in different departments that will have your back. That I've found really important in my line of work too. Lastly, I think it's really important to encourage the next generation and kind of, if you can, bring them along to work, or open them up to what opportunities are out there, and getting involved in school programs like the Engineering New Zealand. It's not Future in Tech anymore, it's something else, but showing the next generation what is out there and what opportunities are out there, because I'm sure by the time it's their turn, there'll be an even bigger and broader type of works in the sustainability space. So yeah, that's me. That's my.
Thank you. Yeah, definitely. I love that last point around the younger generation. I have quite a few friends who are primary school teachers, and they were saying they all do at least one term with a big sustainability project now. I'm like, amazing. And so I was giving them lots of ideas, and it's cool to see that it is kind of becoming such more of a part of that like younger schooling as well. Cool. And Sarah.
Oh yeah, I mean, Sophia, to your point, certainly 20 years ago, those the boomers were pretty heavy on the pushback on that front, and you know, there's definitely still a bit of that now. But I think in my early career, I think people thought I was the person who policed the recycling bin or something, and sustainability was very much a role that one person did in the organisation. And I guess what I'm seeing now is that sustainability is increasingly becoming quite a commercial agenda. You know, boards and executive teams are gaining greater responsibility for the organisational sustainability strategy. And in fact, more and more roles are beginning to have sustainability responsibilities integrated within them. So for example, in procurement and product marketing, communications, finance and strategy. So I think the current challenges that I'm seeing in terms of pushbacks really relate to the pace and scale of change needed to address some of our pressing issues like climate change. You know, so while there's probably fewer deniers of climate change now, my sense is that businesses may downgrade the urgency to act if they think that their contribution will not make a dent, or you know, if the perceived climate impacts are not on their doorstep, say, compared to the fact that they're going to have to let customers down this month due to freighting issues or delays in product supply issues. So unfortunately, unlike the sprint that's required to address things like supply issues, climate change is a marathon. And like all marathons, it requires preparation and long haul endurance. So I guess for us in our organisation, we do try and make it easier for clients to maintain their climate commitments alongside those immediate pressing issues. Because we know, climate change is just not going away. So it's about keeping up the pace and recognising that the part that they play is part of a bigger picture. And it's everybody's responsibility to play a part one way or another as an individual consumer or as an organisation. But it's steady progress and acting now rather than leaving it to becoming a big problem on your doorstep. To Sophia and Joy's points as well, burnout is something that is quite a real thing in sustainability roles. We have seen it reflected in our sustainability professionals research as well. Be really interested to see how that plays out this year as well. Our sense is that with the greater level of urgency and requirement for sustainability professionals within organisations, as well as that kind of labour skill shortage, there's a bit of a choke point that we're dealing with, and we feel that our hypothesis is that compared to the previous 2 years, sustainability professionals are perhaps going to be feeling even more under the pump and burnt out. But it'll be interesting to see how that plays out, because we are comparing that to all other New Zealand professionals. Dealing with that though, like for me personally, I think my advice is to, yes, things like climate change are massive and overwhelming, and it's easy to kind of get caught up in the hopelessness of what can be done and how quickly. But I think it's just about recognising for me that through what I do as an individual or through my business, it's about being part of actually taking action, just doing something. If everybody just did something and did it now, we would be well on our way. So just, kind of bringing it back to a sense of what is within your control. That helps to deal with the kind of overwhelming sense of the problem, I think, and doing, rather than kind of worrying, just act, do something. In terms of the kind of life balance, so that's kind of the mental resilience needed to dealing with some of the sustainability issues. I've got some core things that are really important to me: sleep, nutrition, and exercise, and also making my own space as well, time for me. So if any of those are out of balance, I find that everything else starts to tip out of balance as well. So putting the oxygen mask on yourself first is really important as well, to ensure that you can keep pace with the marathon.
Yeah, great. Really excellent points there, guys. And I love that you all touched on that burnout piece, because it feels very real at the moment for a lot of people I know. I've actually just been reading some things that they're dubbing 2022 the year of the resignation, and that after all the lockdowns, and it's all worldwide, and now really hitting New Zealand, people are having that reevaluation of not wanting to feel that their whole world is their work, or feeling so overwhelmed by it. So it'll be really interesting to see, and I can't wait to read your guys' study, Sarah. It'll be super interesting. Thanks, guys. Okay, next question. What is some advice you have for now crowders who would like to move into a more sustainably focused career or role? Sophia, do you want to kick us off this time?
Yeah, sure. I think when you bring your strengths to the job and your passions, say you like being in the social space more than like the waste, then you can definitely look at options like training people with all things sustainability. And yeah, I mean, I don't think that you should be discouraged if you don't have a background in science or those different quite technical aspects of sustainability, because yeah, you could be an activist and still be a sustainability professional and put art, sustainability in your art, and share that message through there. Yeah, that's kind of all I have to say about that. But yeah, bring your own passion.
Great, thank you. Sarah, would you like to go for that one next?
Yeah, well, Kelly's probably going to kill me, just a heads up on that, but I did have a quick sneaky peek at the results of our survey, because we have actually got some insights on this particular question that you have around what to do if you're looking to move into a sustainability focused career. So from our survey so far, so we've had 125 people respond who are sustainability professionals. So 96% of them do have a tertiary degree, but don't panic. This is in any kind of tertiary degree. There are in a whole range of sectors, predominantly science and commerce, but that's not to say that any of those other tertiary degrees are irrelevant, because of those we've surveyed, 55% of them feel that a qualification is necessary in the role. So that's a reasonable amount. And of that, 53% suggest that a specialised sustainability qualification would be preferred, but another 44% said any qualification suitable. So don't panic. I think if you're wanting to get into a sustainability focused career, by all means, look at what sustainability qualifications exist out there if you're looking to upskill. But don't discount the fact that actually any tertiary degree will be help provide you a stepping stone into a career pathway in sustainability. We have professionals who are from pretty much every industry sector in New Zealand. So wherever you are, if you're in your role, I would say either try and wrap your arms around sustainability and bring it into your own role, or if you're wanting to upskill, have a look at what other what other qualifications are out there to support you in that space.
Awesome, thank you, Sarah. We love a little sneak preview. It's very nice. And then we just had someone from, who was it? Sorry, Paige from Earthwise say there's real room for sustainability work in accountancy, management, and marketing. Science is not the only pathway. And yeah, completely agree. I have no scientific background. I think, and especially now, it's getting all companies are looking at sustainability. So it's kind of like every industry, there's got to be some opportunities around. So Dewey, pass along to you.
Okay, well, I do not come from a science background. I studied law, economics, and politics at university. And my strengths are in writing, in lobbying, in persuasion, in critical thinking, things like that. And so I think that I do, I guess, like embody that person, that kind of person, or the perhaps small amount of people in the sustainability and climate justice space who do not come from, a science background or anything like that. And honestly, the way I see it is that like we can all thrive in it. And the reason why is because sustainability in itself is far too broad that anyone could potentially really hone in on a niche depending on your strengths. And so, for example, as Paige said, if your strength is in accounting, then look for organizations that require your arithmetic and your critical analytical skills, say in carbon accounting. And there's lots of different organizations who actually does this. I think Toy2 is one of them. Or if your strengths are in social media, I can say now that even the UN actually needs people who are social media savvy or just technologically savvy. And so consider building your portfolio by firstly volunteering for climate groups and using that to run social media campaigns for organizations, whether that be the public sector or the international organizations sector or even the private sector. There's really a plethora of different roles that you can hone in on depending on your strengths. But I guess the key thing there is to know what your strengths are, right? Like what keeps you going? What are the things that, yes, you may be passionate about sustainability, but what are the things that you know you can bring to the table that no one else can actually bring in? And so for me, I found that firstly on writing and policy research. Even research in itself is actually such a big part of what we do in Generation Zero, wherein we give, we scrutinize different policies or think about policies that we do not have yet, and then lobby to get those through the board. And so you'll see in our social media, in our Instagram, that we've got lots of different submissions and consultations that we support. That in itself is actually one of the key things that I believe drives that systemic change, because we're pushing for the decisions that we require for the future. And so hopefully that is really helpful. I do see a question here from Victoria Collins. Isla, I'm not sure if you'd like me to just...
Yeah, sure. I was just going to say, should we kick into some questions, because I can see everyone's... Yeah.
Just a thought on this particular question from Victoria. So she asked, what courses can you recommend to upskill in Auckland? So one thing that I specifically and personally did back in 2017 was a free summer course on energy economics. And the energy economics that the University of Auckland Business School held was only for 3 days. At the moment, it's being held online. You get a certification at the end of it. You get free food as well, if that's your jam. And it's fantastic because it's open to university students, practitioners, or just people who want to know more about the energy sector and how that in itself plays a huge role in sustainability. Obviously, energy, I think I may be wrong here, but I think the last time I looked at it, it's about 40% of our emissions. And so that in itself plays a huge role in terms of not just our present footprint now, but what our future would look like as well, because we need energy and sustainable energy at that to keep developing. And so you could look at courses like that. And again, there's lots of free courses online, but also at universities who actually give these out to people for free.
Amazing, thank you. So yeah, we will go on to sort of audience questions now. So you can either pop them in the chat or feel free to pop your cameras back on and ask them out loud. But I'll pass that question across to Sarah and Sophia, which was, do you have any courses you can recommend to upskill in Auckland?
Just echoing Joey, so I think there are certainly those broader tertiary level qualifications. So just I think suss out the Unitechs and universities on that front to find out what they have in terms of both specialist courses and sustainability. And then the avenue is also the kind of professional development specific professional development courses. So things like becoming a certified GRI, be able to kind of get certification under a professional body for a specific type of activity, whether that be like carbon auditing or B Corp consulting or, GRI professional. So there are quite a range of very specific, professional development qualifications that you can get that are tied to a type of activity that you would do within the organization.
Awesome, thanks. Anything to add there, Sophia?
Yeah, so CEP is another organization kind of doing like fringe training and give you accreditation to do like carbon accounting and all sorts of things in the energy kind of space. Then you've got Sustainable Business Network that also has a range of courses. I'm going to be on the next Sustainable Leaders program, which is really exciting. It starts next week, so I'll let you know how that goes. But yeah, all the different tertiary institutes have their varying degrees of sustainable degrees, and so I think Massey has like a sustainable development goal course, which is quite interesting. I took it a couple of years ago now, but then there's also places like Infrastructure Sustainability Council of Australasia, and they do stuff on social and sustainable procurement, which I've taken. It's really good. And how to engage your workforce, and bringing them on the journey of sustainability. So there's a lot out there, and it just kind of depends on what space you want to really hone into, because I'm sure you can find something really relevant to what you want to pursue.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Sophia. And yeah, thanks for the little SBN plug. We do have lots of courses and upskilling opportunities, and all the links that people are popping in the chat, I'll pop them in that follow-up email as well, so you guys can check it out. But yeah, completely mirror your guys' points. There's lots of different things out there, and like we said, you know, it's not all science-based. There's lots of different ones you can do. And often I think as younger people, we're scared to ask our employers to, you know, do that development or put that money aside for us to do development. But always, you know, unless you ask, you don't get. So talk to your managers and stuff and ask them, you know, say you have this interest, and would they be interested in you going on a course to kind of incorporate that into your role, because that's always a great opportunity if you can get it through work as well. Great. Questions? Do we have, sorry, I'll just go back up in the chat if we had any more. Okay, here we go from Teresa. Kia ora. Question please, or recommendation requests for people not coming from environmental science, ecology, environmental engineering background. Okay, I feel like we sort of covered that around that. There's lots of different ways you can go through it. Any other questions people have in the chat, or in, you know, you can pop your hand up. I can go full screen so I can, oh no, sorry. Can go gallery view. There we go. I can see you all again. Does anyone have any questions? You can pop your hand up or pop your mic on.
I just wanted to also add, going to the different conferences on sustainability is also really helpful, and it's a really good way to train. I know sometimes they can be quite expensive, but I remember attending an SDG summit many years ago. Dewey, you were speaking at it. Yeah, it was really enlightening. And then also, yeah, there's a few that go in Auckland anyway, and they're good to attend and network at.
Yeah, definitely. And especially there's heaps as well of like free webinars that I've seen popping up, especially now that, you know, everything's online. ThinkStep often have a lot of really good ones, so always good to check them out. Yes, but do we have anyone? Dewey, did you want to say something there?
Yeah, I actually wanted to echo what Sophia just said in terms of different I guess conferences and networking events for sustainability. And what I find really interesting with those events as well is that, yes, you get to listen from different people and get inspired or connect with people who, you know, have been in a different type of industry, but is doing or working towards the same goals as you are doing right now. But one thing that I really value from there is that it's actually a space as well to be pushing for, I guess, like sometimes like the gaps that we don't see, or, you know, we clearly have in the sustainability space. And so if you think that everything that we're saying right now is still not quite fitting with the niche that you find yourself in, then ask for that, right? Like push for those gaps to be filled. Fill that gap yourself if you wanted to. And so personally, I found that when I started at the law firm, the first thing I did was to actually introduce myself and my passions. And that in itself really, I guess, became like a magnet for different people to say, oh, I'm also interested in this. I just didn't know that anyone would actually be doing something for it. Why don't we do something together? And then together we looked at different parts of the firm that we could actually be changed to be to make it more sustainable. And so that in itself, like, you've got the power to actually magnetize people towards what you want to do. And so start it if you feel like nothing is quite fitting what you're wanting, what change you're wanting to push for.
Yeah, that's such good advice. And especially I talk to lots of businesses, and so many green teams are created in that way, that just a few people have that kind of personal interest, and then they find each other and magnetize towards each other, and then, you know, they can change a business from within so quickly. So yeah, great advice there. And we have a question here from Teresa. Any experience dealing with sustainability tokenism or greenwashing in the workplace and how you tackle that? Anyone keen to kick us off for that one?
I can talk about it because I've definitely had experience of this beforehand. Okay, so again, as I said beforehand, because I am a young brown female, sometimes when, and I could see it very clearly when people just randomly message me being like, hey, can you please speak to this? Or we want you to, give a speech for like an hour on this topic and you'll be speaking to our board of directors, etc. And that in itself, I'm kind of like, oh, great, it's a good opportunity. It's a good opportunity to connect with people who would be at the decision-making table. But at the same time, like what kind of value are you really asking from me? What support are you wanting for me to give you? But also, what are you going to give me as support as well to give that value back, right? Like, how do we be in this space that's mutually, I guess, beneficial for both parties? Because at the end of the day, this is taking time out of our days. But also as volunteers, it's one of the key things that I find myself always having to be like, oh, I need to pause my life or what I'm doing now voluntarily, say for Generation Zero or other groups that I volunteer for, just so I can give value to XY generation, XY organization. And so that's definitely happened to me beforehand. And one thing that I've definitely tried to do and be, I guess, very intentional about, as I said, is to vet them and to ask as many questions as I can in terms of, why me, right? And I asked the Now crowd this when they asked me to speak here, why me, right? Like, what do you think I should be bringing to the table? Or what do you think I can bring to the table? Who else am I going to be speaking with, right? Like, who else do I need to invite into the table if there aren't people of color or people who I think would actually be giving that value that I may not be able to give. And when you push for those questions and when you push for answers that would actually get them to really think about, okay, why do we want them? Is it just a tick box exercise to have someone young or to have someone who's from the global south? Like, why do we need this person? That in itself is really helpful because you're kind of putting the ball back in their court and saying, okay, think about what you're really asking people of color when you do this. In terms of greenwashing in the workplace, I guess like it happens all the time, but the way I see it personally is that my belief system is that everyone has a role to play in sustainability, right? Particularly the private sector, because, we are all part of the problem, so we all need to be part of the solution. If the greenwashing kind of in the workplace or an organization is happening, then how can you turn that from like a pejorative thing to a beneficial educational form of turning that around to actually action, right? So one thing that I try to do is to hold them to account by following up. If there was an event that was held and I felt like that was a bit of a greenwash event, I would then follow back and say, okay, what are, you said when you asked for my time that these were the kind of goals that you wanted to achieve. How are we achieving those, right? How have you amplified people of color? How have you amplified climate justice? Again, like I come from a, I guess, grassroots campaigning world, so those are my questions. But you may have different questions depending on the space that you're coming from. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that question. So thank you, Teresa, for raising it.
Thanks so much. Great. Yeah, do you want to pass along there?
Yeah, I think it's important to note that sustainability is a journey. So it's not a binary, you're either doing, it's good or it's bad what you're doing. And the reality is every business is at, any place along that journey. So there's always a risk of greenwashing. The key to kind of take it from being tokenism and greenwashing is to not have it as an agenda that sits out to one side. It really does have to be integrated within part of the business strategy. So I guess that's what we tried to do through our work with our clients, is to have sustainability completely integrated within their strategy and their way of being, who they are. Their core purpose is entirely linked to their sustainability. So to me, that's kind of the key to it. But certainly as businesses are going along that journey, there's always going to be a risk of greenwashing.
Yeah, completely agree there, Sarah. And I often think sometimes, of course, there are businesses that go out with the intention of greenwashing, but quite often I see businesses that probably just don't have the knowledge within their own teams and have, you know, just passed something along. So it is, as long if you can, yeah, get it really integral and actually have that not as a token add-on, it's much more likely to stick and be genuine. Did you have anything to add there, Sophia?
Not too much, really. You guys covered it all. But yeah, I just want to echo the fact that the bigger that the corporation is, the more greenwashing that you'll see, and that's just because it's such a big beast to tackle, and then they grow complacent and then just do, you know, the bare minimum or the tick box stuff that clients may want. So holding them accountable, your leaders accountable is really important, and just making sure that you stay a champion in that space. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, and I think that's a great point as well from a consumer perspective. Often if I see something that, yeah, often really big companies will post something and I'll look at it, and because if you are someone in this space, often you can see through it quite easily. I'll message them and be like, oh, I saw this. Can you just explain a little bit more about it to me, and question them on it? And, you know, sometimes it can point out that they don't know what they're talking about, or it has been greenwashed, or they just haven't communicated it well. But that's always quite, you know, a good thing as a consumer. And I feel every time I do that, I'm like, well, hopefully someone in that team went, oh, people are reading this and people do know, so we've got to step our own, you know, game up. So that's often a way I do it from a consumer perspective as well. We're nearly at the end of our time, so if anyone has any last moment questions, let me know, or else we will close off this event.
Can I just add one final thing in terms of what you said? Because yeah, your point about engagement is actually one thing that I think is really important. We've got this, I guess, like this habit, not so much habit, but like this common value within climate groups that we always try to become friends first and build that trust first and that community first before asking for value. And I think as someone who is usually at the kind of receiving end of like tokenism or whatever else, often, not always now, but you know, beforehand, I would really appreciate, and any of you are in private firms or organizations who do want to engage with climate groups, then yes, start with getting to know them as people first, right? Like start with getting to know how you can amplify them and support them, instead of just going, let's get in touch with them because we need them for this event or for this mahi or whatever. And I think that is more, that longevity and that genuine relationship is something that we really appreciate, because we know that we're all in this together, rather than, you know, just one-off kind of engagement from time to time. And that is something that even us at Generation Zero is trying to do with every, with everything that we're trying to do right now, right? Genuine friendships before campaigns.
Yeah, I love that. And especially because sustainability is such a lovely place a lot of the time, and you all have this really like core common value. It's a really nice place to make friends. So yeah, great point there. Does anyone have any, Sarah or Sophia, any final comments before we pack off for the day?
No, I just want to say it's an exciting time to be in sustainability, and go all of you guys. We need all hands to the pump. So fantastic that you're passionate. I love the passionate people now in sustainability. It is incredibly invigorating and motivating for me as part of the old guard. So awesome.
I just saw one question there from Victoria. Any mentoring groups you can recommend that support people to move into this area? So in our crowd, that's a lot of what we do. That's a lot of what our events like this are based around. I don't know any off the top of my head other than that. Does anyone else have any knowledge on that?
There's that Women for Climate thing that's just come out recently.
Yes.
which looks really cool. And it partners mentors up with mentees, and you kind of talk about what you want. I don't know how many people they're taking though.
Yeah, I'll have a look at that, and I can include it in the follow-up email as well, because I did see that the other day and thought it looked pretty exciting.
Yeah, I was part of the pilot cohort for that, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who would like to move into the space. It's a space for mutual and reciprocal mentorship, right? So it's not just a young person being mentored by someone, it's also that often someone in the board or someone who's at their top of their career when it comes to sustainability or risk management, who you can actually mentor as someone who's young. So I would highly recommend it. If you have any further questions, I'm happy to answer questions in regards to Women for Climate. It's also a good space to be trained on this on the space. They offer lots of webinars that you could do. Often it's in European time, but if it's something that you really, really want to do, it's all for free, and you get to actually listen with other wahine all around the world.
That's awesome. Great. Okay, well, we've just hit 1 o'clock, so we'll have to say goodbye, but it was so lovely to have this event and have this space to have these amazing panelists speak. Really inspiring, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. And I hope that you still get to go and eat a really yummy lunch since I took your lunch break up. But really, really appreciate it. And I know all the Now Crowders do as well. And we'll also share this recording in a wee while. We'll just get it up on our YouTube channel. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you later, everyone.
Ka kite.
Ka kite.